Beneath the busy streets of London, under cafes, traffic lights, and office buildings, lies a secret world. A wartime headquarters, a Cold War hideout, and a spy base linked to Ian Fleming, the man who created James Bond. This is the story of the Holborn Tunnels, a forgotten subterranean labyrinth once operated by Britain's most secretive agencies. Let's explore the hidden world under Holborn, its birth, its role in World War II, the intelligence officers who shaped it, and what the future holds for this underground relic. What are the Holborn Tunnels? At first glance, Holborn is just another bustling central London neighborhood. Law firms, Preda manager, and the usual parade of black cabs. But hidden beneath its busy pavements lies something far stranger. A secretive, mile-long tunnel system stretching silently beneath the city. Carved deep into the London clay, about 100 feet below street level, this subterranean maze consists of reinforced chambers, long corridors, and fortified bunkers. To the average pedestrian, there's no sign it even exists. But in reality, you're walking over a relic of wartime paranoia, engineering, and espionage. The Holborn Tunnels were born out of crisis. Built in 1940 during the height of World War II, their original purpose was threefold. First, to shelter Londoners from the relentless Luftwaffe air raids during the Blitz. Second, to act as a secure hub for top-secret communication systems that needed to stay operational no matter what happened above ground. And third, to serve as a hidden base for covert wartime operations. Think spies, signal intercepts, and hush-hush meetings that probably began with code words and ended with whiskey. But let's be clear, these weren't your average community bomb shelters with tin walls and canned beans. These were precision-engineered nerve centers. They housed switchboards, signal rooms, and wartime tech that looked like something out of a Cold War thriller. Except it was real, and it was happening right under people's feet. In short, Holborn was never just Holborn. It was a front, and what lay underneath was far more intriguing. A hidden world built for survival, secrecy, and strategy. The wartime origins, built under pressure. The early 1940s weren't kind to London. Night after night, the Luftwaffe turned the skies into a roar of engines and fire. Bombs fell in waves, streets crumbled, entire neighborhoods vanished under clouds of dust and ash. Civilians took shelter in tube stations, but it quickly became clear London needed more than luck and basements to survive. The British government responded with urgency and secrecy. They needed deep, fortified facilities that could do three critical things: protect people from air raids, serve as emergency backup command posts if primary buildings were destroyed, and most importantly, operate covertly, away from enemy surveillance and potential sabotage. Enter Holborn. Beneath its unassuming surface, engineers began drilling into the earth, carving out a hidden world below the chaos, along with nearby Chancery Lane. 2 deep-level shelters were constructed, armored with reinforced concrete, fitted with ventilation systems, and wired for wartime resilience. But one of these shelters wasn't destined to hold civilians huddled in blankets, not for long anyway. Instead, it was handed over to a different mission entirely.
To the bank station. And when I was up there, I felt like Tony Mac.
Intelligence. It became a nerve center, a communications bunker, a subterranean war room for people who didn't carry rifles, but did carry secrets. While bombs exploded above, cables were run below, maps were pinned, messages decoded, strategies born. This wasn't just construction, it was a counter-offensive, one buried under brick and blackout curtains. A shield, a sanctuary, and a stage for operations that would shape the course of the war. It wasn't just steel and concrete, it was strategy, buried underground. Key takeaway number 1. The Holborn Tunnels became a nerve center for espionage. As the Second World War dragged on and the stakes rose higher, the Holborn Tunnels took on a new role, one far more secretive, and far more dangerous. One agency in particular saw the tunnel's potential: the Special Operations Executive, or SOE. Their mission wasn't conventional warfare. It was sabotage, subversion, resistance coordination. Formed under the directive of Winston Churchill himself, the SOE was quickly dubbed Churchill's Secret Army. Their agents operated behind enemy lines, slipped into Nazi-occupied territories under false names, and worked hand-in-hand with resistance groups to blow up bridges, derail trains, and gather intelligence. But such operations couldn't be run from an ordinary office. They needed security, secrecy, silence. Holborn offered all three. Buried deep beneath London's surface, the tunnels gave the SOE secure lines for coded radio transmissions, physical isolation from German spies and aerial bombings, close proximity to Westminster and Whitehall for rapid coordination, and most importantly, plausible deniability. These tunnels weren't even on most official maps. What started as a bomb shelter was now something more. It was a control room for irregular warfare, a command post for a ghost army, a nerve center in the quiet war beneath the official one. These weren't bunkers anymore. They were war rooms, and they pulsed with secrets. Ian Fleming's ties to the tunnels. Yes, that Ian Fleming. Long before he dreamed up shaken martinis and tuxedoed assassins, Fleming was in the spy game for real. During World War II, he served as a naval intelligence officer, rubbing shoulders with Britain's most secretive agencies, including the SOE and the early forms of what would become MI6. And he wasn't just pushing papers. According to declassified documents, scattered memoirs, and painstaking research by military historians, Fleming played a direct role in covert operations tied to the Holborn Tunnels. These underground facilities weren't just a backdrop. They were a battlefield of ideas, a planning zone, a briefing site. Fleming reportedly helped coordinate sabotage missions, using SOE assets routed through Holborn, draft psychological warfare plans, escape and evasion protocols, and what he called disruption missions. Brief field agents, sometimes personally, before they were flown into occupied France or Belgium. You can practically feel the inspiration. Secret entrances, hidden corridors, whispered briefings. It's no stretch to say that the world of Casino Royale, Moonraker, and From Russia with Love was born not in fiction, but in places like Holborn, beneath the very streets Fleming once walked. His spy stories? They weren't just fantasies. They were echoes of a real hidden world beneath London's feet. Life underground. Daily operations in the Holborn HQ. Life in the Holborn Tunnels wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fast cars, tuxedos, or dry martinis. It was dim lighting, recycled air, and the ever-present hum of machines. The war might have raged in fire and fury above, but down here, it was all about precision, silence, and secrecy. The Holborn facility was a self-contained world, built for function over comfort. Inside, you'd find radio rooms bristling with equipment, where encrypted messages were sent and received in real time. Sleeping quarters, barely more than narrow bunks crammed into side chambers for exhausted agents and operators. Briefing rooms, where mission details were whispered, maps unfurled, and identities concealed. And long connecting tunnels that led to disguised exits, side doors in unrelated buildings, even manholes scattered throughout the city. This was a place where trust was measured in clearance levels. Only a few hundred people ever set foot inside. Each one had to be vetted, documented, and sworn to silence. There were no windows, no clocks, just routines, rituals, and tension thick enough to chew. Above ground, London roared with life and bombs. But below, it was quiet. Orders whispered, missions launched, futures decided in the flicker of a signal lamp. The Holborn Tunnels weren't just hidden. They were alive with secrets. Key takeaway number 2. Holborn was a crucial node in a global spy network. The Holborn Tunnels weren't just a hidden hideout. They were a nerve center in a sprawling international web of resistance. From deep beneath London, the SOE orchestrated some of the most daring missions of the entire war. Messages zipped through encrypted radio lines, orders were dispatched, and agents were moved like chess pieces across a global map. And through this underground hub, the SOE maintained direct coordination with French resistance fighters, blowing up rail lines and gathering intel; Norwegian saboteurs, targeting Nazi heavy water production; Yugoslav partisans, disrupting German troop movements in the Balkans; African and Asian operatives, launching guerrilla campaigns in colonial territories. It was a complex relay. Recruits were trained in safe houses in country estates scattered across Britain, then discreetly brought into London. From there, many passed through Holborn briefed, outfitted, and given final instructions before being quietly transported to airfields. Their next stop? Dropped by parachute into hostile territory. To the public, Holborn was just a place to change tube lines, but underneath, something massive was unfolding. This wasn't just a tunnel. It was a launch pad for freedom fighters, for intelligence operations, for global resistance efforts that changed the course of the war. And the vast majority of Londoners had no idea it was even there. The Cold War era, from sabotage to survival. World War II ended, but the Holborn Tunnels didn't close. Instead, they adapted. As the Iron Curtain descended and nuclear tensions rose, Britain needed more than wartime courage. It needed infrastructure that could survive an atomic age. And so, the Holborn complex was quietly absorbed into a new kind of conflict, the Cold War. The tunnels were retrofitted to serve a different but equally urgent purpose. No longer focused on sabotage or infiltration, they became part of Britain's communications resilience strategy, a fallback system in case London's above-ground command centers were destroyed. Redesigned with updated telecommunications gear, reinforced against potential blasts, and reconnected to the nation's crisis protocols, Holborn evolved into a contingency command post. While exact records remained classified or redacted, multiple researchers suggest links to MI6 and GCHQ, who likely used the space as a secure backup for signals intelligence and emergency operations. And during moments when nuclear war seemed frighteningly plausible, like the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, the tunnels were placed on alert. Personnel were stationed, equipment tested, doors locked tight. Holborn was no longer just a Cold War relic of wartime espionage. It had become a crisis bunker, a hidden chamber of last resort. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about surviving the unthinkable. Urban legends and the ghosts of Holborn. Where there's secrecy, there's rumor. And beneath Holborn, the lines between fact and fiction blur. As the tunnels slipped into obscurity, stories began to surface. Whispers passed down through late-night train workers, maintenance crews, and curious locals. Tales of unexplained phenomena. Locked doors that hadn't been opened in decades. And yes, ghosts. One of the oldest legends speaks of tube ghosts at Holborn Station. Strange figures glimpsed near service doors long after the last train. Others reported doors in the walls that led nowhere. Or strange electrical humming echoing through maintenance shafts, even when the systems were supposedly shut off. Some stories veered darker. Rumors of government workers with top clearance IDs who were assigned to the tunnels and then simply never returned. No records, no explanation, just silence. Of course, no official ghost story has ever been confirmed. But what is confirmed is that Holborn's existence remained classified for decades. The public didn't know what was beneath their feet. Many of the missions run from the tunnels remain sealed in national archives, or simply never recorded in the first place. And even now, Some parts of the Holborn complex remain inaccessible, locked, sealed, unmarked on most maps. What's hidden may not be supernatural, but it's definitely not ordinary. Key takeaway number 3. These tunnels are a living piece of espionage history. Forget the exploding pens and Aston Martins for a moment. Unlike the fictional bunkers seen in Bond films, the Holborn Tunnels are real and arguably more impressive because of it. There are no cinematic spotlights or dramatic villain monologues. No orchestral stings echoing through concrete walls. What Holborn offered was far more valuable: results. It wasn't built to dazzle, it was built to function. And it did. This quiet, mile-long stretch beneath London helped coordinate resistance across Europe. It enabled the SOE to run sabotage campaigns, insert agents behind enemy lines, and track coded intelligence in real time. Later, it served as a Cold War fallback, ready to operate when the rest of the city might be reduced to rubble. The tunnel complex housed some of the most elite units in British intelligence history. Groups that rarely made headlines, but shaped the course of the 20th century from the shadows. Holborn wasn't just a bunker. It was a nerve center, a training ground, a safe house, a launch pad, and, most of all, a testament to the hidden machinery of wartime strategy. It may sit silently today, but its walls once carried secrets that helped win a world war and prepare for the next. It's not fiction, it's Britain's underground legacy. What lies ahead for the Holborn Tunnels? After decades of silence, the Holborn Tunnels are beginning to stir again. No longer just the domain of spies and switchboards, they've recently caught the attention of urban developers, historians, and planners. And for good reason. Few places in London offer this kind of untouched history, buried intact beneath the modern cityscape. Some proposals are already on the table. One group wants to open sections to the public, offering guided tours through the wartime chambers and Cold War control rooms. Others envision a dedicated museum, showcasing the role of British intelligence in World War II with immersive exhibits and reconstructions. Preservation advocates argue the tunnels should be officially designated as National Heritage Sites, protected for future generations. And some urban planners even suggest leasing portions for modern infrastructure, emergency routes, secure data lines, or subterranean logistics hubs. But unlocking the tunnels isn't simple. A significant portion is still owned by British Telecom, who used the tunnels for secure phone lines long after the war. Some chambers are structurally delicate, requiring extensive reinforcement, and certain sections remain classified, inaccessible even to historians, because the missions they hosted are still not meant for public eyes. So for now, the Holborn Tunnels remain mostly hidden, but momentum is building, and soon, these long-buried secrets may finally step into the light. Ian Fleming's legacy revisited. Before the shaken martinis, before the Aston Martins, before Bond, James Bond, there was Ian Fleming, naval intelligence officer, stationed deep within Britain's shadow war machine. He would go on to create one of the most iconic spies in fiction, but what inspired him wasn't fantasy. It was Holborn and places like it. Fleming's world wasn't built in a Hollywood backlot. It was carved in reinforced concrete, 100 feet beneath London. He knew firsthand the claustrophobia of sealed tunnels, the hum of encrypted radios, the weight of code books and cover identities. His Bond might leap from helicopters and chase villains across Monte Carlo, but Fleming's real world? It was darker, grittier, filled with agents who never got medals, missions that left no paper trail, and victories that had to be kept quiet, sometimes forever. He worked with the SOE. He saw how spies were briefed underground, how sabotage plans were drawn in pencil on classified blueprints, and how lives were saved by messages passed in silence. The Holborn Tunnels weren't glamorous, but they were real. They weren't filled with gadgets, they were filled with secrets. And Fleming didn't just imagine that world, he lived it and then turned it into legend. Why we should remember places like Holborn. Not all wars are won with tanks and flags. Some are won in silence, in rooms with no windows, under cities that never knew what lay beneath, in coded messages tapped out at midnight, in tunnels built not for glory, but for survival. The Holborn Tunnels are one of the last intact traces of that hidden war. A concrete time capsule of strategy, sacrifice, and intelligence work that shaped history from the shadows. They're not romantic ruins crumbling into time. They're frozen history, still holding the dust of missions never made public, still echoing the footsteps of men and women who operated without recognition, often without return. To open those tunnels to the world isn't just about tourism or curiosity. It's about honoring the quiet warfare, the operations that never made headlines, but changed the course of nations. It's about remembering the analysts, the couriers, the radio operators, the planners, people who fought with information, deception, and nerve rather than bullets. Places like Holborn remind us that not every hero walks in daylight. Some walked through tunnels, whispered into radios, and vanished into history without fanfare, but never without impact. To remember them is to understand how wars are truly won, not just in battlefields, but in the shadows. Beneath London's bustling Holborn district, a forgotten war room sleeps. Built for survival, used for sabotage, touched by legends. And now, maybe finally ready to speak. Subscribe for more true stories where history and mystery intersect. And tell us in the comments, should we open places like Holborn to the public? Or should some secrets stay buried? Stay blessed and stay curious.